My name is Jake, and if there was ever any uncertainty about my position in the family, it vanished completely the day I learned about the will. It wasn't some grand, formal revelation where my parents sat me down to explain. No, I discovered it purely by chance, through nothing more than bad luck. It happened a few months back when I was over at their place, the same house I'd been helping them afford for the last 5 years. The mortgage payments, the random grocery trips, even the repairs around the property. I was the one holding everything together while my brother, Eric, contributed absolutely zero. And when I say zero, I mean not a single thing. No employment, no obligations, just drifting through life expecting everything to be handed to him. Which, it turned out, my parents were more than willing to do. That day, I was assisting my dad with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to handle it themselves. He'd asked me to scan a pile of documents for him, mostly legal and financial papers, and I didn't think anything of it until I spotted it. A folder marked Estate Planning and Last Will and Testament sitting right there in the pile. Normally, I don't pry, but curiosity won out. After all, I'd been the one ensuring they stayed housed. It didn't feel unreasonable to wonder how they'd arranged things for the future. So I opened it, and that's when I read the lines that made my stomach sink. Everything, literally everything, was going to Eric. The house, their savings, all their assets. I wasn't mentioned at all, except for a vague sentence about loving both sons equally. Sure, equally. That's why they made certain their favorite would get it all while the son actually keeping them financially stable didn't even rate a mention. I felt like an idiot. There I was, going out of my way for them, making sure bills were paid on time, ensuring they never worried about meals, while they quietly planned a future in which I received nothing. And Eric, he wasn't simply lazy, he was spoiled. He never helped them, never put in a single dollar, yet he'd somehow persuaded them he deserved it all. Maybe because he was the younger one, maybe because they'd always coddled him, maybe because he knew exactly how to work them. Whatever the cause, they'd made their decision clear. I sat there staring at the document, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. How long had this been in the works? Had they always seen me as their unpaid financial backup with no reward expected? Did they ever truly value what I did? I don't know how long I sat frozen, but eventually Dad noticed I'd stopped scanning. "Hey, Jake, what's the holdup?" he asked, coming back into the room. I didn't bother hiding the will, I held it up and met his eyes. "So this is how it's going to be?" I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Everything to Eric. After all I've done for you?" Dad's face drained of color for a moment, but then he just sighed as if I were a child having a fit. "Jake, it's not what you think." "Really?" I shot back because it seemed crystal clear to me. "I've been covering your mortgage, buying groceries, repairing the house while Eric does nothing, and you still chose him as the only one who counts." Dad shifted uncomfortably, but instead of offering a real explanation, he just mumbled, "It's complicated." That was all. No apology. No real justification beyond those two empty words. Just a flimsy excuse and a look that suggested he expected me to let it go and resume being their on-call bank. I should have left right then, but I wanted to hear it from both of them. So I called for Mom. When she walked in and saw the will in my hand, her reaction wasn't much stronger. She at least looked ashamed, but what she said next made my anger surge. "Jake, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said softly, as if she were doing me a kindness. "You have a solid job, you're self-sufficient. Eric, well, he has a harder time. We just want to make sure he's provided for." That was the moment something in me broke. They weren't even trying to deny it. They knew precisely what they'd done, and in their view, it was entirely reasonable. They'd spent years encouraging Eric's lack of effort, and now they intended to reward it by giving him everything while discarding me like an afterthought. I took a slow breath, tightened my jaw, and placed the will back on the table. "Understood," I said, my tone eerily even. "Good to know exactly where I stand." Then I turned and left the house, ignoring their calls as I shut the door hard behind me. They'd made their choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. I didn't return to their house after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them deal with their own issues. If something broke, they could sort it out. If they needed food, they could get to the store themselves. And most crucially, when the mortgage payment came due, I wasn't covering it anymore. The quiet stretched for about 2 weeks. At first, I think they figured I was sulking and would eventually come back like I always had. Maybe they thought I'd calm down and even apologize for questioning them. But as the days dragged on without contact, and more importantly, without money, their tone began to change. Then one afternoon, my phone lit up. Dad texted, Property taxes are due. That was the entire message. No greeting. No, how are you? No remorse for what happened. No acknowledgement of all I'd done. Just a blunt, businesslike demand as if I were still their automatic funding source. I looked at the screen for a second, almost entertained by how expected it was. They truly believed they could just request cash as though nothing had changed. That I'd continue being their safety net even after they'd shown I was expendable. I replied calmly, I'm sure Eric can take care of it since the house will be his anyway. It took exactly 5 minutes for Mom to call. I let it go to voicemail. Then another text arrived. Mom, Jake, please don't act this way. We need to talk. Oh, now they wanted to talk? Now that bills were stacking up and consequences were hitting home. I waited an hour before answering. There's nothing to discuss. You made your decision. Now live with it. I assumed that would end things for the day. I'd been perfectly clear and I didn't feel a shred of guilt. But then Eric decided to weigh in. His message came that evening, and the moment I saw his name, I knew it would be infuriating. Sure enough, it was peak entitlement. Eric, dude, why are you making such a scene? It's not that serious, just help them like you always do. I almost laughed out loud, not serious. He was genuinely acting like I had no reason to be upset. I replied, now I think you've got it handled since you're the favorite and everything. Eric, oh my God, are you actually upset about the will? Grow up. It's just money. Oh, now it was just money. Now that it was heading his way, it suddenly wasn't important. The double standard was staggering. I fired back. Then you won't mind using some of that future money to cover the mortgage, right? Silence. A few minutes later, Mom texted again, switching to full guilt mode. Mom, Jake, we're your parents. Family looks after one another. We sacrificed so much for you growing up, and now you're just walking away from us. I had to breathe deeply to keep from hurling my phone. Walking away? I'd spent years ensuring they never faced hardship, all while they spoiled Eric and rewarded his inaction. And now that they had to face the results of their own choices, I was the villain. I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. I responded, you made it clear I wasn't really family when you excluded me from the will. Now Eric can step up. I could picture Mom clutching her pearls dramatically. She always loved playing the wounded party, even when she was clearly at fault. Minutes later, Dad sent another message that pushed me over the edge. Dad, we're not asking for much. Just enough to tide the mortgage over for a few months until we sort things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish. The word sent fire through my veins. I'd been rescuing them financially for years, giving up my own time, money, and energy to ease their lives. I'd done everything expected of a devoted son. And their thanks, ensuring I got nothing in return. And now when I finally stood my ground, I was selfish. I gripped my jaw, breathed steadily, and typed, no, I'm finished. Then I powered off my phone. They'd chosen. Now they'd deal with it. The quiet lasted one day. I knew my parents wouldn't quit easily, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. The following morning, I woke to a notification. A bank transfer request. I frowned and opened it. It was from Mom. She'd actually sent a direct request for funds, treating me like a cash machine. The amount, $3,500. I stared in shock, half laughing at the nerve. No note. No context, just a brazen demand for precisely what they owed on the overdue mortgage. They weren't even pretending to ask anymore. They assumed I'd fold. I rejected it instantly. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom, I ignored it, then another text. Mom, Jake, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline? I waited before replying because it's not my job. Ask Eric. Another call. Declined. Another text. Mom, we'll lose the house if you don't help. Now it was suddenly a crisis. After years of using me as their wallet, they were finally facing reality. I answered, maybe you should have considered that before deciding I didn't count. Seconds later, Dad jumped in. Dad, you're really going to let your parents end up homeless? Wow, that one actually made me chuckle. The manipulation was so obvious it bordered on comical. They weren't destitute. They weren't facing eviction tomorrow. They just didn't want to touch their own savings because they were accustomed to me handling it. I ignored them the rest of the day. That night, Eric texted again. Dude, just send the money already. You're blowing this out of proportion. I clenched my teeth. This spoiled brat thought he could scold me. I replied, you mean the same money you're set to inherit? Why don't you send it? His answer came quick. Eric, you know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh, so now convenience mattered. He was fine with me emptying my accounts, but when it was his turn, suddenly he was broke. I wrote, then you'd better figure something out, bro. You're the one they picked. No reply. I went to sleep feeling strangely calm, like I'd finally escaped years of control. But the next day, things got worse. I was at work when my apartment front desk called. Hey, Jake. Your parents are here? I nearly dropped my phone. What? She paused before adding, they're saying it's an emergency and you won't pick up. Oh my God, they'd actually come to my apartment because I stopped paying their bills. I took a steadying breath, rubbing my forehead. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting anyone. Awkward silence. They're being pretty insistent. I tightened my grip. I don't care. Tell them to leave. I hung up and immediately got a text from Mom. We're downstairs. Let us in. No question, no warning, just another order. I didn't respond. Another text. Mom, Jake, we're not leaving until you talk. I exhaled hard, stood from my desk. They weren't backing down. Fine. I was going to make sure they learned something permanent. I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs, fury building. I wasn't afraid. I was livid. The sheer gall of these people to appear at my home unannounced, demanding cash like I owed them. Not a courtesy call, not even a weak apology, just an ambush. They really believed they could pressure me into giving in like I was still a gullible kid. I pulled the door open, and there they stood, Mom, Dad, and of course Eric, clustered together like they were staging an intervention. Mom had her arms folded, wearing her signature disappointed mom face. Dad stood rigid, hands in pockets, looking irritated and entitled, as if he couldn't believe I'd forced him to do this face-to-face. And Eric, the parasite, had the audacity to look annoyed, like this was a minor inconvenience for him, as though he wasn't the root cause. The second Mom saw me, she launched into drama mode. Jake, finally, we need to talk. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. No, you need to go, she blinked, genuinely stunned. Excuse me, you heard me. My voice stayed level but unyielding. You don't get to show up at my home demanding money. That's unhinged. Dad snorted sharply. Are you seriously going to let us lose the house over a childish grudge? I let out a bitter laugh. Childish grudge. You mean the one where you decided I was useful for paying bills but not worth including in your will? That grudge. Mom gasped, hand to chest as if I'd struck her. Jake, that's not fair. We only did what we felt was right for the family. I cocked my head. Right for the family? You mean right for Eric? Just admit it. Heavy silence. Long, thick silence. Eric, silent until now, finally spoke. Look, man, I don't even want to be part of this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to him and let go. No, you just accept everything given to you. You're 28, Eric. Get a job. His face flushed. Dude, what the hell? I stepped closer. You heard me. You want the house someday. Start acting like you own it. You want to be the golden child. Start covering their bills. I'm done being everyone's bank. Eric stared at the ground. Mom inhaled deeply, resetting her guilt strategy. Jake, he's your brother, I nodded. Exactly, and I've supported him more than you ever did. Dad's expression darkened. You're acting selfish. I laughed, actually laughed. That's hilarious coming from you. I waved a hand at all three. You decided Eric gets everything and I get nothing, and now that your choice has consequences, you're trying to guilt me into fixing it. Not going to happen, Mom's tone sharpened. We thought you'd handle this maturely. I arched a brow. Maturely, you mean quietly accept the betrayal and keep paying. Because that's clearly what you expected. Dad moved forward, trying his old intimidating stance. Jake, we raised you, we fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I met his gaze directly. I already did for years, and you thank me by cutting me out. Mom's lip quivered. We thought you'd understand. I shook my head slowly. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand I was never truly family to you. Just a source of income. Another crushing silence. I turned to Eric, still avoiding eye contact. And you, what's your defense? You've had years to mature, to build a life, to contribute, but you didn't. Because you knew they'd always bail you out, and after they're gone, you figured I'd pick up the slack, right? Eric snapped. What do you want me to say? I didn't ask for this. I nodded. Right, you didn't ask. You just took. His mouth opened, then shut. Nothing to say. Mom tried one final plea. Jake, we're family. Family looks after each other. I looked at her for a long beat before answering. Exactly. So why didn't you ever look after me? She froze, no response, no retort, nothing. I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're finished here. I turned, walked inside, and closed the door. Before I reached the couch, my phone buzzed. New text from Dad. Wow, after everything we did for you? You're really going to abandon us? I smirked and typed, no, you abandoned me first. I'm just finally accepting it. Then I blocked them all. But I had no clue that blocking them would only escalate everything. It didn't take long for things to spiral. Less than 24 hours after blocking, I started noticing posts on Facebook. My parents weren't tech experts, but they certainly knew how to broadcast their complaints online when they felt justified. At first, I figured it was typical drama. But scrolling further, I realized this had grown beyond me stopping financial help. The posts were cloaked as loving family messages, but were obvious digs at me. Mom shared something about not raising her son to be ungrateful and how real family supports each other unconditionally. Several friends commented agreeing, calling me disappointing and out of touch. Then Dad posted his own. Families should never turn away when they're needed most. We gave our children everything, and this is the repayment. Our son, who should be supporting us in our later years, has chosen to walk away. He tagged me and added a passive-aggressive "hope you're proud." But Eric's post was the worst. Of course he joined in. He shared a message full of lies. Some people think family is only about money. They don't grasp that family means love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but certain people are too self-absorbed to see that true love means helping those who raised you. He included a veiled swipe at me. Wish some people could learn what family really means. I love my parents and am thankful for all they've done. That was my limit. I sat staring at the screen, stunned. How had it reached this? They'd completely flipped the narrative, painting me as the heartless son unwilling to support his devoted parents, the son who didn't value their lifelong love. How dare they? I'd always been the responsible one, the contributor, the one who never complained. Yet somehow they'd convinced themselves they were victims, and now they were telling everyone I was the problem. I didn't react right away. I stepped back, gathered my thoughts, waited several hours. I wanted to respond thoughtfully, not rashly. But the more I considered it, the clearer it became. I couldn't let them rewrite history. If they were going to smear me publicly, I'd share the truth. So I opened Facebook on my own account, the one I use for real friends and genuine connections, and started writing a long status. I didn't want to stoop to petty sniping. I just wanted the facts out there. Here's what I posted. I've stayed silent the past few days, but I can't anymore. My family has been posting a lot online about me that simply isn't accurate. They've painted me as the bad guy, the ungrateful son refusing to help his parents when they need it most. I'm here to tell the other side. I've always supported my family. From the day I started working, I've helped with bills, bought groceries, and done whatever I could. But there's a limit to how much you can give without receiving respect in return. For years, I've watched my parents favor Eric, giving him everything: attention, money, the house in their will. Meanwhile, I was expected to keep providing without ever being treated as an equal. Some of you might think, well, that's just family. But here's the reality. Family should go both ways. When I learned my parents left everything to Eric and nothing to me, I saw how lopsided this had always been. They never even considered me, not once. They've shown I'm only valuable when they need something, never because they truly want me around. I've funded much of their lifestyle for years: vacations, bills, property taxes. And for what? To be treated as a fallback option? I'm done. I'm not an endless bank account. I'm a person who deserves respect. I've earned the right to be valued for more than my wallet. As for Eric, it's time he steps up. He's 28 and has never held a real job. He's never taken responsibility. My parents enabled that behavior so long it's no wonder he's their favorite. But he's had ample time to build his own life. Now it's his turn to stand on his own. To everyone following this and siding with my parents, remember there are always two sides. Yes, family matters, but so does mutual respect.